What's up, guys? Today, my intention for this live is to chat about the number one dating tips for people pleasers. And so, if you have been told that you're a people pleaser, if you identify as a people pleaser, or you notice that you just tend to do what everybody else wants to do rather than what you want to do, then welcome. You are in the right place. My first tip, my number one tip for people pleasers is that you start writing down when you're being a people pleaser. When you start to raise awareness on the fact that you're doing this, it's going to shed a lot of light on the patterns that you get into. So, for example, I am also a self-identified people pleaser. And some examples that I have noticed in my life recently was when I was getting a facial. I was cold in the room and I recognized that I didn't speak up or ask for the temperature to be increased. That would go into my people pleasing journal. Other ways that you may be being a people pleaser and how it may be hurting your dating is if you're not choosing the location that you want to go on a date with a woman. So if you're expecting her to make that decision, and so you're used to just going with the flow because maybe in childhood, like, if you have a similar story as I do, it was always much easier for me to just go with the flow. I didn't want to rock the boat. I was taught from an early age that, and this is sad, but I was taught from an early age that my wants and needs really weren't important unless they were what everyone else wanted to do. So I learned to just sit down, shut up, keep my mouth quiet. This causes problems because if you're going on a date and you want to invite a woman on this date with you and you are trying to be a people pleaser and you're saying something like, where do you want to go? Well, now you're putting the ball in her court. You're making her be the man. She doesn't want to have to decide where you guys go on a date. She wants you to say, hey, I'm going to this really epic place on this day at this time. Want to join me? But if instead you're getting into this people pleaser dynamic and you're like waiting for her to take charge because maybe your mom or your dad or somebody, a primary caregiver in childhood was always taking charge of everything and making your wants and needs feel less important, then you may feel that you're trained to always go with the flow. And you might do this in friendships and in the workplace as well. So really start noticing when someone asks you where you want to go to lunch. Have an answer, right? Have your own answer. And this process is a process of change. You start realizing, wow, it's really hard for me to identify what I want. But it's so important to start doing that because if you get into a relationship and you can't express your wants, then your wants and needs will never be met. And then slowly you'll become resentful. And resentment is the basically number one driver of the dissolution of a relationship. It's the number one driver of divorce. Sure, it may take the form of infidelity or issues with money, but really it's that underlying resentment that builds up when we are being a people pleaser and we're not expressing our wants and needs. So the next time you're going to go to dinner with friends, I want you to have the place that you want to go in your mind. I want you to say, you know what? I really don't like Chinese food if they suggest Chinese food. And I am a culprit of this, okay? I have been to so many Chinese restaurants when I didn't want the Chinese food. Yuck, I don't like Chinese food. But did I speak up and say, actually, I would prefer like a hamburger, right? No, I didn't. So starting to get really clear on expressing your wants and needs. And sometimes the first step of that is to start writing down, I noticed that this person, like, I didn't feel good in this situation. And I noticed that I didn't speak up. And so that's the first step, is really identifying it. The second step is learning to get clear about what you want and then communicating it. Hey, let's grab lunch. I have been dying to try this place. Want to join me? As opposed to, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Oh, I'm cool with whatever. No, you're not. You're not cool with whatever, because if you're cool with whatever, you have no backbone, right? It's just not true. We're not cool with whatever. We're not go with the flow all the time. And if you're a people pleaser, this is going to cause you problems in dating. So in your dating life, how you can use the non-people pleaser is to really practice the TDL. And the TDL is what I call, it's the call to action when you're inviting a woman on a date, giving her the information she needs to say yes or no. So it's the time, the day, and the location of your date. And you're going to choose the location. And you're going to also share with her why that location is so epic and why you really want to go there, or why you are going there, regardless of whether she says yes or no. So starting that off is going to be really important, getting really clear about what you want to do. When someone asks you what you want to do, I want you to practice not saying, oh, I don't care, whatever you want, whatever you want, whatever you want. Oh my goodness, this passive energy is so feminine. It's going to mess up your sexual tension in relationship, because when you're dating, you really want to be in your masculine, and you really want, when you're in your masculine, it allows her to be in her feminine. So instead of saying, what do you want? Whatever you want. Well, let's just do it, whatever you want. That's going to end, right? Because you want to step into your masculine, step into your power and say, I want to go here. I want to see what you look like dressed up. I want this type of food. Want to join me, right? It's very sexy. Expressing your wants is so sexy. You can even practice this as you start getting into the relationship. I want to see what you look like in a green dress. I want to see what you look like with your hair up. I want to see what you look like when you're all dressed up. Really learning to express those wants and needs. So step one is really identifying when you're not being authentic, when you're saying, I'm cool with whatever, when you're just going with the flow. Step two, so you're writing this down. Like I use a notes, the little notes app in my phone, and I write it down, and then I share it with my therapist. So sharing it with a coach or a therapist can be a really great way to be seen and to hold yourself accountable to, hey, I'm not going to be a people pleaser anymore. Then getting really clear, once you start realizing, ooh, I'm out of integrity here. This is not really what I want to do. Then what is it that you want to do? Now you have to get really clear on what your wants are. Right. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a kid, I remember I was like 12 and I was sitting with my family. I'm an only child in this family where everyone's older than me. And I've never really felt like I fit in or like I could really relate to them. And my aunt asked me what I wanted to do for my birthday. And I was like, I want to wear a tiara and have breakfast in bed and have glitter and be waited on by a servant. And I was just being honest about my wants. And the look on my mother's face when I expressed my wants clearly was like sudden death. Like I felt like in that moment, I learned that I should never express my wants. What I want is selfish and rude and bad. And that really was because she had not healed that side of her either. She learned that, you shouldn't express your wants. And she struggles with being a people pleaser so bad, right? So bad. But I learned it from her. So a lot of times we learn these bad patterns from our lineage. And so in that moment, I learned never express your wants and needs. Always ask what other people want to do first. Your wants and needs don't matter. But guess what happens when you don't acknowledge your wants and needs in relationship? You start to resent your partner. You start to feel as though life is not really that meaningful because you're not getting your wants and needs met. You might find that you're unfaithful because you've learned to not communicate what you want and need with your partner directly because you're afraid that that's bad if you do. And so then all of these bad things can happen from that because you're not being honest. Or you might just allow the other person in the relationship to take because you've set up this dynamic that you learned maybe in childhood that, hey, if I just give everything and I always do what the other person wants, then I will be lovable. But that just isn't true because it's kind of problematic when you're always being so nice. I've experienced this with my partner where he'll for a long time, he would offer to drive me to work. Back when I worked downtown in corporate America, he would always offer to drive me to work, even though he hated doing it. But he felt like if he did something nice for me, that meant that he was lovable. And so he was just in this pattern, but he would become so resentful because to drive me there and back took an hour out of his day and he had to work as well. And then he would be mean without really intending to be mean, but it all came from him trying to be a people pleaser because in his mind, I think he thought that meant that he was lovable because he was taught in childhood, hey, I got to be helpful to others. But what happens is when you are doing that in your relationship or the early stages of dating, the other person, it takes away the ability for the other person to then give back to you. So there's no equal give and take. And it just makes the one person feel as though they're being taken advantage of, when really they're setting up that dynamic because they're giving, 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 giving. It leaves no room for the other person to then give back. And generally, as a people pleaser, you have not learned and practiced how to receive. Like the story I just shared, I learned that for me to ask for what I want and receive what I want was bad. So therefore, I learned this problematic behavior where I would always just try and figure out what everybody else wanted to do. And that causes problems because then I never receive what I want. Yeah. And so you really want to be careful of that, because if you're in a relationship where you're giving 100% and you're leaving no room for you to receive, that also is going to make the person in relationship with you feel bad, because you think about all the times when you're giving, how great that feels for you. You're robbing the other person of their ability to give to you, to give back to you. So you're actually robbing them of that feel good feeling that you feel when you're giving to others. And that's just not fair. So part of this work is to really get clear on how you can receive for yourself. And that's so critical. It's not like, oh, that's sweet, but I don't need that. No, you do. You need to receive what you want and need, and your partner needs to be able to give you what you want and need too, because otherwise the partner is going to want to exit the relationship because they feel as though their role is meaningless in it. So I hope those practices help you. I wasn't expecting this to be an 11-minute video, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm happy to answer those. And thanks so much for watching. Oh, and if you're looking for more advice on this subject, this is something I specialize in my coaching program. You can learn more about that on my website at emlovz.com. And I basically have a group coaching program that is awesome. I give lifetime access to my clients. We meet twice a week on weekly group coaching calls. You also have access to an extensive online curriculum that walks you step by step the entire process that you need in order to fill up your dating funnel, and Mega Date, which is my dating philosophy where you date multiple people at the same time to diffuse your energy and increase your confidence. If you're interested in learning more about how I may be able to help you in coaching, check out my website at emlovz.com and book a new client session with myself or a member of my team. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.